your boy King Crowner back again with another edition of History You May Not Know and History That Is Not Told in Detail for Show. Today's lesson, I'm going to give you an uncut gem of the great Selma Burke. She was a sculptor and a phenomenal artist of the Harlem Renaissance movement who was known to change America's black artistry and how our currency was expressed. Selma Burke was born December 31st in the 19th century in Moorhead, North Carolina. She was the seventh out of 10 children to the Reverend Neil and Elizabeth Burke. Her father was an AME Baptist, a church minister who worked on the railroad at that time for additional income. Her father died when she was at the young age of 12 years old, and her mother had passed away when she was 101 years old in the 1970s. As a child, Miss Burke grew up in a completely segregated school system in North Carolina. She remembered that her knack for artistry came up as a riverburg clay near her home where the blacks went to school, and she touched the clay and remembered squeezing the feeling in her hands. It was 1907, and Selma Burke said, "The clay and the form of art discovered me." She recalls after her time that her mama didn't believe in her dream and journey. Her mother described that she needed to find something that made more income, something more stable and ambitious. Her grandmother was a painter, so she had that artistry in her background and lineage. Miss Burke attended Winston-Salem University in North Carolina. Before graduating in 1924, she began to go to an AIDS training school in Raleigh, where she married her childhood friend, Durant Woodard. It was a tragedy that she married her childhood friend. In less than a year, he passed away shockingly. Due to this trauma of passing away, Mrs. Burke decided to relocate to North Carolina to New York City, because remember, it was during the Great Depression, jobs were low, and she needed to go to a place where income was available. She decided to move to New York City. She relocated to New York City in 1935. She began working at the local art colleges where she began to attend school. She was working during the Harlem Renaissance, was really going on around that time, and she began working with McKay, who helped her and described to her how clay models work. Miss Burke was introduced as the artist of the community. She began working in the community actively, drawing the pictures, working at the art centers, learning the foundation of sculpture. The sculpture would go on to be her main work, and she got this start going primarily to the New Deal issued through the programs under the FDR administration. She was given this type of goal in teaching at Frederick Douglass High School in Manhattan in 1936. While in her studies, Miss Burke decided to travel to Europe twice in the 1930s. During her fellowship, she discovered and studied sculpture in Vienna. From 1933 to 1934, she discovered sculpture, worked in Paris, and worked in multiple lanes to learn and master the craftsman of artship. She sculptured, she painted, she developed. She was a true artist of that regime. You must understand, she did all types of sculptures, from Nazis to artistry in Europe to World War II photos. She championed all of the imagery and photos that we see until this day. She decided to relocate to the United States post her graduate studies, and she earned a scholarship to the University of Columbia Ivy League School, where she received her master's degree in fine arts in 1941. Later on, as she began to grow, she began to do active work in the New York City scene. Ms. Burke began to work around the community centers. She played an integral role in the community arts and offered a range of studio work for poetry classes. Based upon her opportunity to bring people together, she decided that she learned later on that her hometown that she grew up in Moorhead, black children were banned from the public library. With her rise to fame, she single-handedly located black doctors in that town and wanted to get that ban on books and libraries in her hometown removed. She used her influence the entire time and she was changing things for the betterment. You must understand, in the same year, she married an architect named Herman Colby, and she moved to join his family in New Hope, Pennsylvania. Colby died recently before Burke could even get her life expanded and going. Miss Burke decided to stay in New Hope until her death in 1994. She was a major teacher. She taught at Livingstone College, Swarthmore College, and Harvard University. She was teaching the sculpture and artistry to black children all around the United States and around the world. She traveled, she wrote, she mentioned how sculpture, art, and meaningful facets that you can work with are beautiful. Remember, she was completely dignified and used many different outlets. She could use wood, brass, alabaster, and limestones. Her sculpture piece of Duke Ellington was still heightened at the Milwaukee Institute to this time. She also has film architecture in the Smithsonian Museum in D.C. She has multiple sculptures of different people in Spelman College and the University of Atlanta, Georgia. She also has a bronze statue of Martin Luther King in North Carolina issued. Burke was issued the Negro League's inaugural award for exemplary art and exemplary studies, but her best known work came from making a sculpture honoring the president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, of the Freedom Force. In 1943, she won a national contest sculpting him and how he looked. This image became so iconic that it is still on the coin of a dime that we use to this day. Most people do not know that a black sculptor single-handedly imprinted the money in our pockets. Did you know that she issued this in a contest and did this all freehand? Did you know she made this statue bigger than life? She amplified his look and made this look become bigger than life. FDR knew this thing would be captivating, and they wanted to make sure this iconic energy would last over time. Mrs. Burke Outlook was the first Negro in her time to do something with this grand feat. Mrs. Burke is an honorary member of the Delta Sigma sorority, and she also was an honorary doctorate degree from Livingstone College and Spelman. Her contribution to black women, to historical figures, and those in the arts should be campaigned and idolized. Selma Burke should be highlighted based on what she did during the height of this country when it was not acceptable for blacks to do so. Her work should be highlighted, emphasized, and what she did to the society and how she showed that if you give the opportunity, you will excel. Selma Burke is an icon, a living legend, and she told that self-education and hard work and discipline can exceed all prejudices, misunderstandings, and miscommunication. Well, it's your boy Ken Crowder coming back at you with another great detailed document. I hope you learned something about an iconic figure inside of American history. Please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you document this information, and I hope you look in that dime in your pocket, and I want you to remember that a black woman created. Peace.